The thought that this could happen within the next 2 weeks, and President Trump is the one facilitating all of it, there's a lot of hope here. Anything that is holding you back on thinking it may be harder, things could fall apart, what would you be looking at as parts of these deals that may be, deal breakers?
The thing about President Trump is he always has a plan A and a B and a C, and so if plan A falls apart, he'll move on to plan B. I mean, plan A, he said a number of times, I thought it was going to be simple to have peace between Russia and Ukraine. It turned out to be the hardest of all. Well, his plan A was he thought his charm and personality would get them to the negotiating table right after the election. It didn't work. So then he was on to plan B, and plan B was to pressure Ukraine and Russia militarily and economically. It worked for Ukraine, but it didn't work for Russia. So plan C was he met with Putin in Alaska, and it looked like it got enough of progress, but not everything he wanted. So now Trump is on to plan D, and plan D is he brought the European leaders and Ukraine to the White House and is now creating a real sense of momentum. And the fact that in the middle of the meeting yesterday, he called Putin, he's working on a timeline. Right. For Donald Trump, he's a real estate developer. Mm-hmm. Time is money. And so he's going to be working very, very quickly to create the sense of inevitability and the sense of momentum. And I think he'll get there.
And it was 1 in the morning there. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about President Trump and Putin. The media narrative over the weekend was, oh, this was such a disaster. How could you have, the red carpet for Putin? Let's look back. Putin, how about this with former President Bush here during his term in office? This was a video we found from the AP, if we can cue that up. We need to have Russia's president, whomever it is, and and President Trump. This is a dialogue that's important that gets us to where we are today. Now, I think the security forces that Putin agreed to was a major point that was achieved by Russia, though the media tried to say that everyone was pressuring Trump yesterday, that the European leaders were there to make sure he wasn't bullied. Seems like it might have been the reverse. It seems like they might have been telling Zelenskyy, stay cool. There's some real path here.
A negotiated solution means just that. Each side is going to have to give up something it doesn't want to give up. And it's going to walk away with not what it wanted, but enough of what it wanted to kind of live another day. And so that's what President Trump is doing now. So one of the big concessions, as you point out, was the idea that the Europeans or the U.S. or somehow security guarantees would be given to Ukraine. That doesn't mean NATO membership, and it doesn't mean American boots on the ground, but it might mean European contributions. It might mean American weapon systems going forward that are increase of what they have, the capability of what they have now. So that's what's going to be worked on. And now what's going to probably happen is Ukraine will probably have to give up some land. But if there is a security guarantee of some sort, coupled with President Trump's enforcement of economic sanctions against Russia, it means Russia can't turn around and do this in 2 years from now. It won't have the money because it gets all of its revenue from oil and natural gas sales. And if President Trump cuts that off, Russia doesn't have the money to pay for a war. And if there are security guarantees, then Russia has a great deterrent. Russia doesn't want to go in and face, oh my gosh, not only would we potentially have to deal with a strengthened Ukraine, we might have to deal with Europeans and maybe Americans as a backfill. So again, it's deterrence.
I want to drill down a little on that. Before the Alaska, meeting, it was strong sanctions, and India was going to be, feeling the brunt if they continue to do that. I mean, a lot of people say that did get Putin to where the first meeting happened, and now potentially this. So it is the economics of this as well. Was a big factor, many say, and that's still actually something on the table if they're not going to do it right now, because they don't have to do it right now.
Mm-hmm. The economics is frankly the biggest part of this. And President Trump's trying to do two things at once. He's threading a needle, and it's a really thin eye of that needle. On one hand, he wants to guarantee Ukraine's security. He wants to end the Ukraine war. But he wants to do it without alienating Russia. He could alienate Russia and get the deal done because he would crush Russia's economy. But what does that do? It just pushes Russia into the hands of the Chinese, which we don't want. We don't want a Chinese-Russian alliance aimed at the United States. So he's got to thread the needle. He wants to have good relations with Russia by the time this is done, and good relations with Ukraine. And as a result, he's going to have to as he said to Brett Baer the other night on Air Force One, he said, I've got to bob and weave. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I've got to have, I've got to be flexible. I've got to improvise. And that's what he's doing right now.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.